She fell in love with her father's greatest enemy. What happened next shocked the entire Wild West. The twin suns were slowly sinking behind the red hills when the riders returned to Dusthaven. Long shadows stretched across the silver grass plains, and the wind carried the smell of iron and dry earth. Dusthaven was a frontier town built far from the central worlds, where humans lived like old cowboys but used hidden technology beneath their simple clothing and tools. Hovering lanterns floated above wooden streets, and mechanical horses stood beside real ones, their metal joints clicking softly. Lyra walked beside her mount, guiding it calmly through the town gates. She wore a simple riding coat and boots marked with dust from long travel. People greeted her with respect, some lowering their heads slightly as she passed. Everyone knew who she was, the daughter of Commander Haven, the strongest ranch owner and former war leader of the frontier. Her father's ranch stood on the highest hill beyond town, overlooking wide open land that seemed endless. He ruled his territory with discipline, and his past victories made him a legend. But Lyra often felt like she lived inside his shadow. Every choice she made felt watched, measured, and compared to expectations she never agreed to. As she reached the ranch, she saw her father waiting near the main gate. He stood tall, his coat heavy and old-fashioned, hiding advanced armor beneath. His eyes were sharp, always searching for danger. "You stayed longer than planned," he said quietly. "The supply route needed checking," Lyra replied calmly. He nodded but did not smile. "The outer lands are not safe anymore." "They never were," she answered gently. He watched her for a moment longer, as if trying to read something behind her words. Then he turned toward the ranch house, signaling the conversation was finished. Lyra followed, feeling the familiar distance between them. He cared for her deeply, she knew, but his way of showing it felt more like control than love. Later that evening, while the town lights glowed below the hill, Lyra sat alone on the balcony. The sky above was filled with unfamiliar stars. Somewhere beyond them existed worlds she had never seen, stories she had never heard. She wondered if her life would always remain tied to Dusthaven and her father's reputation. The next morning, she joined a small convoy traveling beyond the safe zone. The route passed through rocky canyons and open plains where old battle scars still marked the land. Many settlers avoided this area because rumors said an outlaw roamed here, a rider known as the Iron Rider. Stories about him were everywhere. Some called him a villain who destroyed supply lines and challenged authority. Others whispered that he saved villages from powerful corporations that tried to control the frontier. Lyra had grown up hearing only one version, that he was dangerous and without honor. Her father never allowed any other story. The convoy moved slowly, scanning for danger. Suddenly, warning signals flashed across their vehicles. Shapes appeared in the distance, fast-moving raiders using cloaking devices. Energy blasts struck the ground near them, sending dust into the air. Chaos broke out. Riders shouted orders while defensive shields activated. Lyra guided her mount behind a rock formation, her heart racing but her movements steady. She had trained since childhood for moments like this. The raiders advanced quickly, their technology far stronger than expected. One of the convoy vehicles exploded, forcing the group into retreat. For a moment, defeat seemed certain. Then a single rider appeared from the dust storm behind them. He rode with calm precision, his coat flowing behind him like a dark shadow. His equipment looked old but carried advanced modifications hidden within. With careful aim, he disabled the raiders' weapons one by one, moving faster than anyone expected. The battle ended almost as quickly as it began. The remaining raiders fled, disappearing into the desert. Silence fell. Lyra watched the lone rider carefully. Something about his presence felt different, not threatening, but powerful and controlled. He turned toward her briefly, and she noticed his eyes were steady, almost sad. "You're safe now," he said simply. His voice was calm, not proud or aggressive. "Who are you?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. He paused before replying. "Just a traveler." But she knew, the Iron Rider. Every warning she had ever heard echoed in her mind, yet nothing about him matched the stories. He helped repair damaged equipment and checked injured riders without asking for reward. When one of the convoy members thanked him, he only nodded and stepped back. "Why help us?" Lyra asked quietly. He met her gaze. "Because someone had to." There was no anger in his voice, only quiet determination. Before she could ask more, he mounted his mechanical horse again. "Stay away from the northern ridge," he said. More danger is coming. Then he rode away, disappearing into the rising dust as quickly as he had arrived. The journey back to Dusthaven felt different. Lyra's thoughts kept returning to the rider's calm presence and the kindness she had seen. It did not match the image of an enemy her father had described for years. When she arrived home and told her father what happened, his reaction was immediate. His expression hardened and a deep anger appeared behind his eyes. "You saw him?" he asked sharply. "Yes. What did he say to you?" "He saved us," she replied honestly. Her father turned away, his jaw tight. "You will avoid that man. He is not what he seems." "How do you know?" she asked carefully. His silence felt heavy. "Because I do." The conversation ended there, leaving more questions than answers. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed the encounter again and again in her mind. The Iron Rider had shown no cruelty, no arrogance. Instead, he seemed like someone carrying a heavy past. Standing by her window, she looked toward the distant plains where he had disappeared. For the first time, she wondered if the greatest enemy her father spoke about was not truly an enemy at all. And for the first time, she felt a strong pull toward discovering the truth, even if it meant challenging everything she had been taught. The days after the desert attack felt different to Lyra. Dusthaven looked the same as always, with riders moving through the streets and traders calling out their prices, but something inside her had changed. She could not forget the calm eyes of the Iron Rider or the way he had protected strangers without asking for reward. Her father increased security around the ranch. Patrol drones floated quietly above the fences, and armed riders traveled in groups instead of alone. Rumors spread quickly through town that the Iron Rider had returned to the frontier. Some people looked afraid, while others seemed secretly hopeful. Lyra watched all of this with growing confusion. The stories she heard from travelers did not match the fear her father showed. One old merchant claimed the Iron Rider helped rebuild a village after a storm destroyed their power grid. A mechanic said he once saved children trapped in a broken transport. These stories did not sound like the enemy she had been warned about. One evening, unable to ignore her curiosity any longer, Lyra decided to ride beyond the ranch boundaries alone. The sky was turning purple as the twin moons rose above the horizon. She followed a trail toward the northern ridge, the same direction the Iron Rider had warned her about. The land there felt older, quieter. Strange metallic structures rose from the ground like broken bones, reminders of an ancient civilization that once lived on this planet. Some settlers believed alien technology still slept beneath the sand. After hours of searching, she finally saw him. The Iron Rider stood beside a mechanical horse, repairing a damaged joint. Sparks glowed softly in the dark as he worked with careful hands. He noticed her presence immediately but did not reach for a weapon. "I wondered when you would come looking," he said calmly. "You knew I would," she asked. He smiled slightly. "People who ask questions rarely stop at one." Lyra stepped closer, feeling both nervous and strangely comfortable. "Everyone says you are dangerous, but I saw you help us. Why does my father hate you?" The question hung in the air between them. He did not answer right away. Instead, he finished tightening a bolt before speaking. "Your father and I once fought on the same side." The words surprised her. "We were partners," he continued quietly, "long before this frontier divided itself into enemies and allies." Lyra felt her heart beat faster. "What happened?" He looked toward the distant hills, as if remembering something heavy. "We disagreed about the future. That is all you need to know for now." She frowned slightly. "That does not explain why he reacts like you are the worst person alive." "No," he admitted softly, "it does not." They sat near a small fire as night settled around them. The Iron Rider shared simple food with her, speaking little but listening carefully when she talked. She realized he never interrupted, never judged her words. For the first time, she felt like someone saw her as more than just the commander's daughter. "Why do you stay alone?" she asked. "Because it keeps others safe," he answered. His reply felt honest but incomplete. Lyra sensed that he carried pain he did not want to share yet. Over the next days, she returned to meet him again. Each meeting felt easier than the last. They spoke about the frontier, about how technology and tradition mixed together in strange ways. He taught her small tricks for survival outside protected zones, showing her how to read the wind patterns and track hidden energy signals beneath the sand. During one conversation, he revealed something unexpected. "The frontier is changing," he said. Large corporations want full control of this planet. They use fear to make people accept their rule. My father protects this land, Lyra replied quickly. Yes, he said gently, but even strong leaders can be used without realizing it. His words unsettled her. She wanted to defend her father, yet part of her felt the truth behind his warning. As time passed, Lyra felt a growing connection with him. He respected her thoughts, encouraged her independence, and treated her as an equal partner in conversation. She found herself smiling more when she was with him. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise together, silence filled the space between them. It felt warm rather than uncomfortable. You should not trust me so easily, he said suddenly. Why? She asked. Because I carry many enemies, and standing near me makes you a target. She met his gaze without fear. You already saved my life. That matters more than rumors. He looked surprised by her honesty, and for a brief moment she saw hope in his eyes. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, her father noticed her frequent absences. He ordered scouts to follow her quietly. When they reported seeing her near the northern ridge, anger filled him. Old memories returned, memories he had tried to bury for years. The town began preparing for conflict again. Weapons were checked, and old alliances were renewed. Many believed the Iron Rider was planning something dangerous. One night, Lyra returned home late to find her father waiting in the main hall. The lights cast long shadows across his face. Where have you been? He asked firmly. Riding, she answered carefully. With him, he said, not asking but stating. She froze. You do not understand what he is capable of, her father continued. He betrayed everything we built. What if that is not true? She said quietly, his eyes hardened. You know nothing about the past. Then tell me, she pleaded. He turned away, refusing to continue the conversation. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument. Later that night, Lyra stood outside under the stars, feeling torn between two worlds. One side was her father, the man who raised her and protected the frontier. The other was the Iron Rider, a man who challenged everything she believed yet made her feel understood. She realized she was no longer just an observer. She stood in the middle of a story that had begun long before she was born. And somewhere deep inside, she felt that the truth, whatever it was, would change everything. The frontier air felt heavier with each passing day. Dusthaven no longer felt calm or safe. Riders spoke in low voices, patrol drones stayed active even during daylight, and people watched the horizon as if expecting a storm to arrive at any moment. Lyra felt the tension everywhere she went. Conversations stopped when she walked into a room. Some people looked at her with concern, others with curiosity. Everyone knew her father was preparing for something, though no one said it directly. Commander Haven spent most of his time inside the strategy room, studying maps and old battle records. His old war armor had been cleaned and repaired, resting on a stand near his desk. Seeing it again made Lyra uneasy. She had grown up hearing stories about those battles, but she never imagined seeing him ready for another one. One evening, she entered the room without knocking. You are planning to hunt him, she said quietly. Her father did not look up immediately. I am protecting this land. That is not an answer, she replied. He finally turned toward her, his expression serious. You should stay away from this matter. I cannot, she said. Not when I know there is more truth you refuse to tell me. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he sighed, as if carrying a weight he had hidden for years. The Iron Rider was once my closest ally, he began slowly. We built this frontier together. We fought side by side when the corporations first tried to take control. Lyra listened carefully, her heart beating faster. What changed? She asked. Her father walked toward the window, looking out at the plains. We discovered something buried beneath this world, ancient alien technology. A power source capable of controlling entire planetary systems. I believed we needed it to protect ourselves. He believed no one should ever control that kind of power. And you fought, she said softly. Yes, he replied. He walked away and turned against me. Many followed him. The frontier split into two sides. Lyra thought about the calm man she had met by the fire, the kindness she had seen in him. The story still felt incomplete. Did he betray you, she asked carefully, or did you simply disagree? Her father did not answer right away. His silence said more than words. Later that night, Lyra left the ranch quietly. She needed to warn the Iron Rider. She knew her father's preparations meant confrontation was coming soon. The ride toward the northern ridge felt longer than usual. Wind swept across the plains, carrying dust into the air. When she reached the familiar ruins, she found him already waiting, as if he knew she would come. "They are coming for you," she said quickly. "I know," he replied calmly. "You cannot stay here. My father will bring fighters. This will become a battle." He looked toward the horizon, thoughtful. Running would only delay the truth. She stepped closer, frustration and worry mixing inside her. "Why are you not afraid?" He gave a small smile. "Fear does not disappear. You simply learn to move forward despite it." They sat together near the ruins as the night grew darker. Lyra felt emotions she had tried to ignore growing stronger. She admired his strength, his patience, and the way he listened without judgment. "I do not want you to fight him," she said quietly. "Neither do I," he answered, "but sometimes people must face their past before they can move forward." She looked down at her hands. "I feel like I stand between two worlds." "You do," he said gently, "and that gives you a chance to change things." The words stayed with her. Suddenly, distant lights appeared along the horizon, dozens of riders and vehicles approaching in formation. Her father had arrived sooner than expected. The Iron Rider stood slowly, placing his hat on his head. "It seems the moment has come." Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to stop everything, but events were already moving beyond her control. The approaching forces stopped a short distance away. Commander Haven rode at the front, his presence strong and unshaken. The air between the two men felt charged with old memories and unspoken emotions. "You should have stayed away," her father said firmly. "And you should have listened long ago," the Iron Rider replied calmly. Lyra stepped between them, raising her hands. "Please, this does not need to become a fight." Neither man moved. Around them, riders waited with weapons ready. Tension filled the air like a coming storm. "You turned her against me," her father accused. "I told her the truth," the Iron Rider said, "something you refused to do." Before the argument could continue, alarms sounded from multiple directions. New ships appeared above the ruins, descending quickly with bright lights cutting through the darkness. Unknown forces landed around them, soldiers wearing corporate insignia. "They found it," the Iron Rider said quietly. "The energy source." The corporate commander stepped forward, smiling coldly. "Thank you for gathering everyone in one place. It saves us time." Lyra realized with sudden clarity that both sides had been watched and manipulated. The corporations had waited until father and former ally faced each other again. Energy blasts filled the air as chaos erupted. Riders from Dusthaven fought alongside the Iron Rider's allies against the new enemy. Old grudges disappeared as survival became the only priority. Lyra moved quickly, helping injured fighters and guiding people towards safer positions. She watched her father and the Iron Rider fighting back to back, their movements perfectly coordinated despite years of conflict. It was clear they had once trusted each other deeply. During a brief pause in the battle, their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, regret, understanding, and perhaps forgiveness. As explosions shook the ruins, Lyra realized that the true enemy was not either man but the forces that had divided them. And she knew that if she did not act soon, the frontier would lose everything. The battlefield around the ancient ruins burned with flashing lights and flying dust. Energy blasts cut across the night while riders moved quickly between broken structures. The twin moons above reflected off metal armor and old stone walls, making the entire place feel unreal, like history and the future had collided at once. Lyra's heart raced as she moved through the chaos. She helped guide injured fighters away from danger and shouted warnings when new attacks came from unexpected directions. The corporate soldiers advanced carefully, their movements cold and precise, like machines following orders without emotion. Her father and the Iron Rider stood together near the center of the ruins, fighting side by side. Watching them felt strange and powerful at the same time. Years of anger and misunderstanding seemed to fade in the middle of battle. They moved like partners who remembered old habits, covering each other without needing to speak. A loud explosion shook the ground, throwing dust into the air. From beneath the ruins, a strange glow began to rise, soft blue light spreading outward like waves across water. "The energy source," the Iron Rider said, his voice serious. "They have activated it." Lyra looked toward the center of the ruins. Pieces of ancient alien technology were rising slowly from the ground, pulled upward by invisible force. Symbols glowed along its surface, and a deep humming sound filled the air. The energy felt powerful and unstable, like something that should not be touched by human hands. The corporate commander stepped forward, raising a device that connected to the glowing structure. "This power will finally bring order to the frontier," he said loudly. "No more rebellion, no more chaos." Lyra felt a chill run through her. She remembered what the Iron Rider had said, that controlling this energy could lead to tyranny. If the corporations gained control, the frontier would lose its freedom forever. "We have to stop it," she said urgently. Her father hesitated for a moment. "Destroying it could release unknown consequences. Leaving it active is worse," the Iron Rider replied. Lyra stepped closer to the glowing structure, feeling heat against her skin. She noticed small control panels built into the alien technology, symbols shifting as if responding to movement. The energy reacted to proximity, growing brighter as she approached. "I might be able to shut it down," she said. Her father shook his head immediately. "It is too dangerous," but she met his gaze with determination. "You taught me to protect people, let me do this." For a brief moment, his strong expression softened. He saw not a child standing before him, but someone brave and capable. The Iron Rider placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You do not have to do this alone." Together, they moved toward the structure while others defended them from incoming attacks. Energy blasts flashed around them, but the fighters held their ground, buying time. Lyra reached the control panel and studied the symbols. They shifted constantly, reacting to her touch. She remembered stories about ancient systems responding to intention rather than simple commands. Taking a deep breath, she focused on one goal, shutting the power down completely. The structure responded with a surge of light. The ground shook and the humming sound grew louder. For a moment, she felt fear rising inside her, but she pushed forward, refusing to step back. Behind her, her father and the Iron Rider fought off approaching enemies. At one point, they stood back to back again, their movements perfectly balanced. Old resentment seemed replaced by shared purpose. "You were right," her father said quietly during a brief pause. "I let anger guide me for too long." "And I let pride keep me away," the Iron Rider replied. "We both made mistakes." Their eyes met with understanding. Meanwhile, Lyra finally found a sequence that slowed the energy flow. The glowing structure flickered and the humming sound weakened. But the corporate commander rushed forward, trying to stop her. Before he could reach her, her father stepped in his path. The two faced each other silently before the commander retreated, realizing the battle was turning against him. "Now," the Iron Rider called. Lyra pressed the final symbol. A bright wave of light expanded outward, then collapsed inward like a closing star. The energy faded, leaving the ruins quiet and still. For a moment, no one moved. Then cheers rose from the frontier fighters as the corporate forces began to withdraw, realizing their plan had failed. The battle was over. As dawn approached, soft golden light covered the plains. Dusthaven riders and the Iron Rider's allies stood together, no longer divided by old stories. Many looked at Lyra with respect, knowing she had prevented a disaster. Her father walked toward her slowly. He looked tired but proud. "You chose your own path," he said softly. "I had to," she replied. He nodded. "And you chose well." The Iron Rider stood nearby, watching quietly. For a moment, Lyra felt nervous, unsure how her father would react. But instead of anger, her father extended his hand toward the man who had once been his greatest enemy. Old wounds did not disappear instantly, but the gesture meant something important, the beginning of peace. Later, as the sun rose fully above the horizon, Lyra stood between them, feeling the weight of everything that had changed. The frontier would never be the same again. Old enemies had fought together. Truth had replaced misunderstanding. When the time came to leave, Lyra prepared her mount while the Iron Rider adjusted his gear. She looked back at her father one last time. "I will visit," she said with a small smile. "I know," he replied. "And you will always have a home here." She rode beside the Iron Rider toward the open plains, not as someone escaping, but as someone choosing her own future. The wind moved through her hair as the town grew smaller behind them. People across the frontier would speak for years about the battle that changed everything, and about the woman who stood between two legends and created a new path forward. And as they disappeared into the wide horizon, the Wild West frontier entered a new era, shaped not by old grudges but by courage, understanding, and the freedom to choose one's own destiny.